Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is September the 1st, 2001, and today we're going to be taking a look at the moon. And we have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. We will start with our corrections here. A moment. Okay, so this is the new map that I came up with. I have a band around the dome for the planets, and then another one for the stars. I don't think I changed anything else on here. I can't recall. You have the northern star. I tried to make the moon equal size with the sun. I'm not sure if that's accurate. It might be a little because the moon moves more than the sun moves, but we'll talk about that later. I don't think I made any other changes, though. Everything else is the same. So we'll go ahead and get into our study now, and we're going to be going through everything as we go through the scriptures. I'll show you the other graphics that I made up. So let's go ahead and get started. And for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon. Now, I put this in here because it specifically says that fruit are brought forth by the sun. So, in order for things to live and grow on the earth, it does need the sun. But it says precious things are, it says things are brought forth by the sun, things are put forth by the moon. So the moon creates things for us to live off. We don't have to have the moon, but it brings forth things that we can live on. If you understand, I have the perfect example, of course. Fruit. Fruit, trees, plants, they need the sun in order to grow. They absorb from the sun and they convert that to food in order to eat. The moon would kind of be like the plants to us. It's not really helping us to grow, but it's bringing forth the plants. We consume the plants and then we grow. That's kind of what the moon is. It brings the snows, it brings the cold. The moon is, I don't know if you saw the other video, so let me start from the beginning, kind of. The moon is, it's ice. It's frozen. It's going to be probably something like nitrogen or something like that in its solid form. It's not going to be helium, because there's something else in the sky that's helium, which I'm going to point out to you. Okay, and I'll tell you why I believe it's helium. But there used to be experiments. One of the things you have to understand is that everything I do is watched. Every conversation I have is listened to. Phone calls, emails, all of that's watched that I do. Okay, so there used to be videos online that. There was a video online that showed a man. He had this huge magnifying glass, and he took a stick and he put it in front of the magnifying glass, and the stick just blew up into flames, right? It just caught on fire within like 2 seconds. It caught on fire and just a huge flame came forth out of it, right? So then he took some CO2 and he put some dry ice. He took some dry ice and he cut it in half first, and he set one block to the side, just in regular sun, I think, or in the shade, I can't remember. And then he put the other under the magnifying glass, and he let it sit there for several hours. And when you compared it to the one that was just set aside with like no sun, it practically made no difference. Practically no difference after several hours in the sun. Now, when you consider that nitrogen is about 4 times colder than CO2, that gives you some idea of how cold the moon really is. So just as the sun gives heat, the moon brings forth cold. Things in the shade of the moon are actually warmer than if they're directly in the moonlight. So precious things are put forth by the moon. It brings forth the cold, the snow, the rains, the varying temperatures. All of these things contribute to our growth, our development, and our need. And then the fruits, of course, the sun is required for the growth of the plants, and it brings fruit. Okay, so that's enough of an explanation for that. I think that's clear. Okay, and he put down the idolatrous plants. You know what? Let's stop here for a moment. I want to show you your moon. You know what? Let's look at some of the changes first. Let me change this. We're gonna stop. Oh wait, let's look at this verse. We'll look at this verse quickly, and then I will show you your moon. And he put down the idolatrous priests whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places, in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the hosts of heaven. Now, I'm going to explain to you in a moment what planets are. I changed my mind. We're going to take a different route. We're going to go to Isaiah. Here we are. Now I want you to pay special attention to this verse. It says, in that day the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their cauls and their round tires like the moon. This word tires is a pendant for the neck, an ornament, round tire like the moon. It's a necklace. Round tires like the moon. Now I want you to keep that in mind when I show you a picture of the moon, because this is what your moon looks like, not this. We're going to do a comparison to the old graphic that I gave you, and we're going to update that as well. Okay, here it is. This is your moon. This is what the moon somewhat looks like, okay? The black is the clear tires that we read about in this verse here. It's called planets in the Bible. Round tires like the moon. The moon has a necklace around it. That's what it's telling you here. A lot of these things in the Bible, there's only one verse left in it. Remember the verse that I said, where I read that the clouds don't rain or something like that? There's I think I found one, maybe two verses in there that kind of explained the clouds. I think we might look at it, but if we don't, just look up the word bottle. It has bottles. But anyway, back to the topic. The moon has a necklace around it, and I left the red here. This is the north and the south. I left that peeping out of there so that you could see. Hold on. So that you could see a little bit better. That you could see, so that you could see they're there when we explain it, when I go back and explain it. But this is the way your moon is set up. You have the moon in the middle, and then it travels around, and it goes under what is called planets, according to the Bible. They're invisible in the sky. They're made up of solid hydrogen. Now, the reason why I say they're made up of solid hydrogen is because hydrogen, one of its forms, you know how you have solid, liquid, gas? Well, there's a lot of different forms outside of those three states. Like for instance, you have the stuff that you squish in your hands, like the mushy stuff. They use it on ASMR videos all the times. Okay, there's a lot of different states. Ash might be another state. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But there's a lot of different states. And in one of the states for hydrogen, there is 0 heat molecules. That means that liquid nitrogen is super, super cold. It can, it would take millions of years. Even if it was sitting right directly on top of the sun, it would take millions of years for it to melt. Okay? But helium has 0 heat molecules in it, which means it can never melt. In one of its states, I don't know which one. I have to give you a disclaimer here, okay? I have been able, I cannot go out in nature and test any of this. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Test it yourself. But I wanted you to know from the Bible the information that was given. Okay? So that's what I'm giving you from the Bible, the most logical conclusion for the state of this planet. I cannot go out and test any of it. I have to do it from memory. And I cannot use science. I have to redo our light video. I have so many errors in that light video. I have to redo the entire thing because I looked to science for some of the answers. And it's just all wrong. I don't even think I can correct it. I think I have to redo it. I have to watch it to make sure. But yeah, there's a lot of errors in that video. So couldn't use hardly any science, couldn't go out in nature and view it. So I had to come up with a logical explanation for everything. So if it doesn't fit perfectly, just make the adjustments on your own. I can only do so much from given my position. Okay? And you all know that I'm pretty much as sick and shut in. So I just can't do it. You would never get the video if I had to go out in nature and test and confirm all of these things. Okay? But you can do that. And if you can do it, then I can just give you the basics from the Bible and you can take it from there. And we'll just work. We'll be a team on this. But this is your moon. This is what your moon looks like. And this would, of course, be the visible portion that we can see. And it just goes around. It goes around. And etc., etc. And so you have your moon. And then, so that said, let's do the comparison that I told you about. Okay, here. This was the old graphic that I showed you. No, this is the new one. Let me pull up the old one. Okay, the old graphic, I had the moon going halfway around the world and then back. That's not accurate. The moon actually is going to go all the way around the planet and back. And let's look at this again. So when you travel in this circle, say if you travel anywhere in this circle, then you're traveling east and west. East and west is within the circle. When you travel up across the circle, then you're traveling north and south. Don't pay much attention to this. This can be moved because it changes from month to month. So it can be moved into like different positions around the earth. But its axis is it goes completely around and then it starts onto the next circle and then the next circle and the next circle. So it's going north and it's going south, but it's also going east to west, west to east, west to east, and east to west, however you want to place it. It's going all directions. Okay? But it's primarily its axis, its orbit is going to be like north and south because it's going across the earth. as opposed to around the earth. Now this is good. We're going to have to do away with this altogether. This has to be deleted, okay? Because the sun's orbit is a little bit different. Let me put my marker on here, because how do I explain the sun? I wasn't able to draw it. Hold on. Let me get some yellow in here. I wasn't able to draw it without explaining it. The sun is going to go, it's still going around the equator. It's still going around the earth, okay? However, it goes around the earth, and then when it comes to the far north or the far south, then it goes up. It's going to go up. And then it's going, as it continues its orbit, it's going to go, wait a minute, I could have probably worked this out had I thought about it. You'll have to work it out, okay? It continues its orbit going down as it rises and sets. But when it reaches the far north, or when it reaches the far south of the planet, its orbit goes up. It goes up. You're not going to see it, of course, because it's on the far parts of the earth. And then it continues its orbit, and it's going down upon the earth again in its orbit. Okay? But it's, at one point it does have the upward motion in its orbit. Okay? And no, not at one point, at 2 points, the far north and the far south. It does it on both of those orbits, and it has to be that way, and I'll explain that to you later as we go through the scriptures. You'll see it as well in the graphics, because, yeah, I'll just explain it later as we go through the scriptures. But, yeah. It's the far north and the far south. Remember, I'm doing all of this just by logic and the scriptures. I'm making it fit within the biblical scriptures that we have. Okay, so let's continue. Wait a minute, we have to go back to our scripture on the planets. So, well, we'll talk some more about planets. And I have to read this again, I'm sorry. And he put down the idolatrous priests whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places, in the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the hosts of heaven. Okay, the reason why, well, it's a different word other than the actual planets. But one of the clues that led me to the understanding that this had to be those tires that are around the moon is because there is another scripture that's going to be coming up that says the moon is given for the seasons. And we're going to skip this for a moment, and then we'll come back to it and talk about it a little bit more, actually. I'm sorry I'm jumping around here. There's so much in this study that it's a little bit hard to organize it in my thoughts. But here we have, in the sense of reigning, a constellation that is a zodiacal sign, perhaps, as affecting the weather, planets compare. So you see, it's affecting the weather. And that's what the moon does. It affects the weather. It makes things cold and other changes, which we'll talk about at a later time. I want to go through the scriptures for now, and we'll come back to that later. As we hit the scriptures, I'll be able to explain the changes in the weather as we look at the scriptures. That's why I don't want to go into details right now. And then the things that are left out, I'll fill in that are not covered by the Bible. See, because everything had to work in conjunction with the Bible, and so that's how all of my theories came to be put forth. Of course, I don't think they're theories, because they're the most logical explanations, but you can test them. I can't test them. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in its going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. The stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in its going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. So, if they're not giving their light, it's just it's the ordinance. The sun and the moon are on a schedule, so it's not giving its light according to the schedule. All of these are described differently, so they all have different ways of being darkened. The moon is covered, the sun is covered by the clouds, and it's going forth, and then the moon shall not cause her light to shine. The moon is similar to a neon light. It requires heat from the sun in order to become brightened. So what you will see consistently is that the moon is going to be brighter. It's going to be really, really bright after a full moon, because that's the time that it's closest to the sun. And then it'll get increasingly darker, unless of course on its path it happens to pick up more sun, because I did have to actually use some science for this, I remember. They said we had the moon for 15 days. So for that 15 days, it's going to be on the side of the sun. So it's going to be picking up a little bit more sunlight, even though it's not close enough to absorb that heat in order to make it brighter. But it's like a neon. It works like a neon light. And if you know about neon lights are cold. They're cold to the touch. You can literally put them on your wall with nothing in between, and they'll sit there just forever. And you don't have to worry about a fire. It's a cold light. So it's not going to cause its light to shine. And this is covered, and this is just following the ordinances for the sun, the moon, and the stars. The sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Withdraw itself, that could either be the ordinances. I don't remember which one I came up with, to be honest with you. That could either be the ordinances of the sun, of the moon and the stars, which I think that's what it is. I think that's what I decided, because it says the stars withdraw themselves as well. But it could also be that it withdraws itself behind the planets. I can't call it planets. I call it planets. I'll call it unseen moon, or I'll call it the black moon. Oh, black moons, okay? And I haven't been able to stick to one, so I may call it any one of those three things, just so you know what I'm talking about. So it could be that it's withdrawing itself behind one of the black moons or unseen moons or whatever. But planets, I have a problem with saying that it's planets. For obvious reasons, we identify planets as something else. Okay? And the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven, and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. He's covering the heaven with a cloud as well, but it's going to be clouds. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. Same as before. The moon is not giving her light. So the moon is darkened. It's not receiving the sun in order to heat itself up and make itself bright again. All the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over thee, and set darkness upon thy land, saith the Lord God. The earth shall quake before them. The earth shall quake before them. Time goes so Time goes by so quickly. The heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. The heavens shall tremble, and the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. This just means that they're both covered. When you see, I think it's in Ezekiel. Here it is. It's going to say that one of the scriptures, unless we've already read it, it says that it's darkened by being covered, but I can't remember which one it is. Also, one of the things that we're going to notice is that here in Joel is that the way that it's said that it's darkened is different in all three verses. In this one particular, I'll read it. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Whereas if we look at this verse up here, it says, the earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark. So this has me rethinking, it had me rethinking, is the sun really fire? Because you can't really darken fire. Well, you can mix it with chemicals, but that's not very logical, okay? I couldn't, not off the, I couldn't just think of anything that would cause such a reaction. But I do think it works out. I actually looked at the definitions. This isn't about the sun, so I'm not going to go into detail. But I actually looked at it. I compared it to the next verse in Joel as well. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and stars shall withdraw their shining. And the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. So it's covered. Hold on. It's the same word here. That's what made me think it was the same. Dark is the same there, and dark is the same in 3, in the 3rd verse. And shall be turned into darkness. And this is a different word because it is describing, what did I decide? Hold on. Oh, okay. This is, okay, because it's speaking of it after the fact. If you look at this word, it's describing, the word dark here means ashy. To be ashy, that is dark colored, by implication to mourn, sackcloth, etc., etc. To make dark. And this is describing it after. It's going to be turned into darkness. So it's not present tense, it's actually after it's already been turned. That's just the way it's said. The dark, hence darkness, figuratively. Misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, wickedness, dark, shall be turned into darkness. I hope that's clear, because we're going to go on. So the next verse is Joel 3. The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Same thing as before. The stars withdrawing their shining, of course, it is, I cannot remember what I decided. Withdraw their shining, I think it's the ordinance. That's the ordinance. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth, and we'll do another verse. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. Okay, I think I left that in there because of the ordinances, because that has something to do with whether or not you'll see the light of the moon and the stars. So that's why I left that verse in there. We're almost done with all of our verses. I can't believe it. I want to try and push through, but then it'll end up being longer than I expected. So we're going to stop here, and we will pick up in the next video. And hopefully we'll be able to wrap this up in the next video. Went a lot quicker than I thought. I'll see you then. I'll talk to you then.